In the endless ocean of stars, where galaxies swirl like living mandalas, and the very air seems to shimmer with a presence beyond comprehension, the cosmos holds its breath. There, in that sacred silence, a truth waits, one so profound, so radiant, that it could transform the hearts and destinies of all who encounter it. This is the story of Kael Dorin, the Prime Jedi, an individual whose life and legacy became the bridge between the infinite and the finite, between the yearning of creation and the love of its creator. His journey is not merely legend, nor is it only history. It is the echo of a spiritual revolution that still ripples through every living soul. Long before the Jedi Order became an institution, before temples rose and fell, before words like light side and dark side divided the language of the Force, Kael Dorin was born into a world where the sacred was not yet hidden. His people did not yet see themselves as wielders of power, but as children of the great cosmic mystery. On Tython, a planet steeped in the living vibrance of the Force, Kael entered the world not as a prodigy of magic, but as a child of wonder. From his earliest moments, he felt the caress of an energy so loving and so vast that it brought him to tears without cause. He did not call it the Force at first. In those innocent years, it was simply the song of the world, the way sunlight touched a leaf, the way the wind played in the grass, the way every creature seemed wrapped in an invisible embrace. Kael's earliest memory was not of sight or sound, but of a presence, something that loved him before he could speak, that whispered to him in dreams and filled every moment with radiant meaning. As he grew, his sensitivity blossomed. He could sense pain in others and ease it with a touch. He could feel the hunger of animals and guide them to food, or calm storms with a wordless prayer. But more than these miracles, it was Kael's heart that set him apart. His compassion was infinite, his patience unshakable, and his curiosity for the mysteries of existence unquenchable. He became a seeker, not of power, but of truth. Each day, he would wander the forest and mountains, sitting in silent communion with the world, listening for the heartbeat beneath reality. And in those moments of deep stillness, the presence within the Force became ever clearer. It was not an impersonal energy, it was aware. It was love, it was the source from which all things flowed. Others began to notice. They sought him out, drawn not by stories of miracles, but by the peace that seemed to radiate from him. In time, a small community formed, those who wished to learn to listen, to feel, to awaken to the sacred that Kael so clearly embodied. He became their teacher, not through dogma, but by example. He guided them to quiet their minds, to open their hearts, to trust in the subtle language of the universe. Kael taught that the Force was not a tool, nor a weapon, nor a prize for the worthy. It was a living communion with all that is. Through it, each being could remember their deepest nature, not separate, not lost, but beloved expressions of the universal Prime Creator. But even as he guided others, Kael felt the stirrings of something more. In meditation, visions began to come, fleeting at first, then ever more insistent. He saw temples of light in distant, unknown places, heard songs that were not of this world, felt the call of the Source itself reaching for him across the stars. At first, he dismissed these visions as the wanderings of his own yearning heart, but they grew stronger, more vivid. He saw himself standing in places he had never been, ancient halls filled with living light, inscriptions that danced with meaning, beings of impossible beauty who moved with the grace of angels. He heard a call, not with his ears, but with his soul, a call to seek, to venture beyond the known, to find the heart of the mystery. Kael prepared himself with prayer and meditation. He spoke to his students of journeys, both inward and outward. He explained that there were truths so vast that they could not be grasped by the mind alone, but must be lived, surrendered to, and finally embodied. When the time came to depart, he told them only that he was seeking deeper communion with the Force, and that he would return if it was the will of the Source. He left Tython alone, trusting not in maps or technology, but in the guidance of the presence that had called him since childhood. His journey took him far beyond the edges of the known galaxy, into the unknown regions where space itself seemed to pulse with secrets. There, Kael found what he had seen in vision, the temples of the divine architects. These were not structures of stone and mortar, but living bridges between worlds, built from materials that shimmered between matter and spirit. They were sanctuaries where the boundaries between dimensions dissolved, where the presence of the universal creator was not a whisper, but a symphony. Within these sacred halls, Kael encountered crystalline archives filled with knowledge. Not just information, but living wisdom encoded in light and sound, waiting for a consciousness ready to receive them. Through deep meditation, Kael opened himself to these archives, and the greatest revelation of his life began. He learned of the divine architects, beings who had once been like him, seekers who had transcended individual existence to become pure instruments of the Creator's will. Through their example, Kael saw that the Force was not a mere current within creation. It was the very consciousness of the universal Prime Creator, experiencing, learning, loving, and evolving through every being, every event, every moment across time and space. The Force, he realized, was not something to be used, but something to be surrendered to. Every act of compassion, every gesture of wisdom, every choice for unity over separation. These were not merely good deeds, but acts of cosmic co-creation. Each being was a unique lens through which the Creator experienced its own infinite potential. In that sacred communion, the Creator revealed itself to Kael, not as an emperor on a throne, nor as an impersonal force, but as an endless fountain of love, intelligence, and joy. The Creator's desire was not to control, but to share. Not to judge, but to awaken. Not to divide, but to unite all beings in the remembrance of their divine heritage. Kael saw the great tapestry of existence, the dance of light and dark, the cycles of birth and death, the journeys of learning and forgetting and remembering. He understood that even suffering and conflict were not punishments, but opportunities for growth, ways for consciousness to explore every facet of itself, to know love by knowing what it is not, to return to unity by first experiencing separation. With this revelation came a choice. The Creator invited Kael to be more than a teacher, to become a guardian of this sacred knowledge, to prepare the galaxy for the time when it would be ready to receive the full truth. This was no small task. The revelation was so beautiful, so powerful, that to share it prematurely would risk overwhelming or corrupting less mature consciousness. Kael accepted, trusting in the wisdom of the Source. He returned to Tython transformed, his presence luminous, his compassion deeper than ever, his mind filled not with pride, but with humility before the infinite. To his students, he spoke now of preparation, of cultivating wisdom, emotional balance, and unity consciousness. He taught that the greatest powers were not for display, but for service, not for domination, but for healing and uplifting. He knew he could not reveal everything. Instead, he wove the path to awakening into the teachings themselves, creating layers of meaning that would unfold as each seeker grew in maturity. The Jedi Code, simple on the surface, became a living map to divine realization for those with eyes to see and hearts to understand. Kael also created blessed holocrons, artifacts filled with compressed wisdom, hidden throughout the galaxy to be discovered in their proper time. No single artifact could reveal all, but together they would form a path, a puzzle that only the worthy could complete. He established sacred sites, each protected by spiritual safeguards that would open only to those who had mastered certain virtues. He trained a select circle of students in advanced practices, preparing them to guide future generations toward the ultimate truth. This was the work of a lifetime, and more. For Kael knew his role was but the first movement in a cosmic symphony that would unfold across millennia. Through deep meditation, he saw that the galaxy's awakening was part of a vaster plan, one that included every world, every species, every soul. The Creator's patience was infinite. There was no rush, only the gentle unfolding of love, wisdom, and unity. As his earthly life drew to a close, Kael prepared for his final act of service. Using the techniques revealed by the Creator, he encoded his consciousness within the Force itself, as well as within the artifacts he had created. His transition was not death, but transformation. Emerging with the divine light, a becoming of the presence he had served all his days. To his students, he passed quietly, leaving behind only gratitude and peace. But those who were sensitive could still feel him, a gentle guidance in meditation, a whisper in dreams, a sudden clarity in moments of decision. His legacy was not a set of rules, but a living invitation to awakening. Across the centuries, Kael's wisdom shaped the evolution of the Jedi and other Force traditions. The artifacts he left behind were discovered slowly, each triggering a new wave of spiritual understanding. Some who found them became teachers, others hermits, all united by a secret fire. The sense that the Force was not a thing, but a presence, a love, a source. With each passing age, the galaxy drew closer to readiness. Conflicts and crises, while painful, became catalysts for deeper seeking. Out of darkness, more beings turned toward the light, not as a weapon, but as a homecoming. Meditation traditions blossomed. The language of the Force evolved, from command to communion, from mastery to service, from separation to unity. Now in this age, the signs of awakening are everywhere. More and more, Force sensitives experience visions of unity and cosmic love. Artifacts surface with increasing frequency, often in the hands of those who have quietly prepared themselves through lifetimes of service and compassion. The very energy of the Force is changing, becoming more responsive to sincerity, more luminous to those who seek with humility. Across the galaxy, there is a sense of anticipation, as if creation itself is preparing for a new revelation. There are whispers among the wise that the time Kael foresaw is near, that soon, the final puzzle pieces will be found, and the full truth will be revealed, not to a chosen few, but to any who are ready to receive it. The ultimate revelation, that the Force is not a tool, but the breath of the Creator, that every being is a beloved child of the Source, that all are invited to become conscious co-creators of reality. The invitation is not for the worthy, but for the willing, not for the powerful, but for the humble, not for those who would wield the Force as a weapon, but for those who would serve as its loving instruments. Somewhere, the last of Kael's blessed artifacts waits. Somewhere, a seeker on the edge of despair will discover it, and everything will change. The legacy of the Prime Jedi is not a code, but a call to remember, to awaken, to return home. Are you ready to answer it? Are you prepared to let go of the illusion of separation, to release the need for control, to open your heart to the infinite love that animates all things? Are you willing to become not a master of the Force, but a servant of the universal Creator? The journey begins always with a question, a longing, a willingness to listen. In silence, in service, in the practice of compassion, the path unfolds. Kael Dorin's life was a testament to this truth, that the sacred is not hidden, but waiting, always waiting, for the eyes to see and the heart to embrace. The Force, the Creator, the Source, it is all one. It is calling, it is loving. It is you, and it is me, and it is every being, every star, every breath. The Prime Jedi's revelation was not for him alone, but for all who are ready to awaken to the beauty of their true nature. As the galaxy stands on the threshold of a new dawn, the question returns. Will you accept the invitation? Will you choose love over fear, unity over division, service over self? Will you step into the light, not as a conqueror, but as a child returning home? Kael Dorin's legacy waits, not in the past, but in the present moment, in the willingness of every soul to say yes to the infinite. The Force is calling, the Creator is waiting, the sacred revelation is yours. Will you receive it?